The thing that makes us unique is what makes us, valuable. The world needs these different points of view. The world needs esoteric personalities. The world needs a little bit of weirdness in order to make the world a better place, because otherwise the world is extraordinarily bland. Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast. Each episode, we dive deep into autistic contributions to society and culture by introducing you to some of the world's most famous and successful autistics in history.
Before we get started, a quick disclaimer on how we use the word autistic. The purpose of this show is not to diagnose the people or characters we discuss as autistic. While some may have announced being autistic, what we're sharing here is our observation of what is representative of autistic culture. It can sometimes be difficult for autistic people to celebrate our natural tendencies and traits due to the perception of autism as a disorder that needs to be fixed, a long history of damaging medical interventions to try and get us to fit in with mainstream culture, and protective masking skills many of us have developed to try to stay safe.
Whether you are autistic or just love someone who is, your hosts Dr. Angela Loria, the linguistic autistic,
and licensed psychological practitioner Matt Lowry welcome you to take this time to be fully immersed in the language, values, traditions, norms, and identity of Autistica.
Episode 32. Animation is autistic. Oh, hey, Angela.
Hey, Matt.
Oh, man. I have been down the IMDb rabbit hole.
Oh, no, that's a dark rabbit hole. Did they try to convince you to buy a subscription? Did it get that dark, or did you manage? Yes, exactly.
Yeah. They never really stop.
What are you studying? What will you be infodumping on me this week, my friend?
Oh, I'm so happy. So I just discovered that one particular voice actor is autistic. And from that, it turns out that other voice actors are autistic. And we are going to go into a deep dive today about how animation itself is a very, very autistic medium. And I cannot wait to tell you about these things. And I cannot wait for the audience to hear all these neat things, because I'm guessing that we have more than one anime fan in the audience.
I am very confident on that. And I will also say, having been, doxxed by the TikTok algorithm.
Oh, of course.
There is a huge crossover in general with acting and autism.
Oh, yes.
Acting. I hear a lot of voice acting. So I do a lot with audiobooks. And so, and then TikTok does these weird Venn diagrams of my life where it's a voice actor that does audiobooks that also does overdubbing of Japanese cartoons.
Of course.
Will be talking about their autism in a 30-second TikTok. And I'm like, what? All my worlds are coming together.
This is the way.
It is the way. So, but I think acting, I think it's not surprising that autistic people would like to do voices and pretend to be other people for lots of reasons. We're obviously very good at acting since we have to do a lot of it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see how this shows up in the world, but I'm not totally surprised that we have influenced culture here.
Exactly. And that's the thing, because, acting is just masking, and we are experts at masking because we have to be. Voice acting is essentially echolalia, because of our hyperconnected brains, because of our hypersensitive bodies, we pick up on a lot of nuance with our environment, with sounds. We innately record and repeat what we hear. So because of that, there are a lot of people who have made a career out of listening to the world around them, listening to animal noises, listening to accents, listening to, other people speak, and then repeating it and being experts at that.
Yeah.
And animation itself requires a lot of monotropism in order to produce millions of individual drawings that go together to make a cartoon. And this is So again, so going back to even caveman days. So it turns out that there is a cave in France that has all these weird half paintings all around. And when researchers discovered it, they're like, that's very bizarre. Why would they not do this? But they were looking at it with flashlights. And when they lit a fire, it turns out that the flickering of the fire made the images move.
It animated it.
It animated it. There are animated cave paintings.
Stop it. We have to go there. You guys, do you want to go on a trip with us? We should do an autistic culture trip and look at cave drawing paintings.
Seriously. And you can bet that was made by an autistic caveman because,
yeah, while the other guy was making the first weapons outside.
Yeah, exactly. Going out and killing a boar versus, hey, guess what? I can make life on the walls.
I'm going to take the story of killing the boar and I'm going to animate it, you guys. This is awesome. You talk while this plays in the background.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's the mindset you have to be in, because it's not what is real. It is the facsimile of what is real, and being able to accurately reproduce or go into a whole new thing, because that's the thing about animation. It's limitless, based on, at least without animators carpal tunnel or anything, but you could do anything. And that's one of the big things that drew Walt Disney, previously covered on the podcast, into animation, about these possibilities. And of course, Walt Disney was not just an animator, but he was also the original voice actor for Mickey Mouse. You know who the current voice actor for Mickey Mouse is?
I do not.
Have you ever seen The Office?
Yes, of course.
You know, in the last season, the boom mic operator who fell for Pam?
Oh, yeah.
That's Mickey Mouse.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, he is a prolific voice actor these days. And he has a lot of credits to his name. But I couldn't find anything that pointed out to him being autistic, so we won't go much further into it. But again, it's kind of neat that this random dude who looks very average is actually Mickey Mouse. But this goes into a lot of other voice actors, and we'll start off with the person who got me on this rabbit hole.
Is there a pun with the word rabbit?
No.
I don't know if it was like a Bugs Bunny reference I was going for.
Well, it actually, it would not surprise me, but we'll get there, because the voice of Bugs Bunny is autistic. So, yeah.
What got you into it?
So there was a man named Corey Greg Weinberg, who is better known as Corey Burton. And he started his career at age 17 under the stage name Corey Weinman, and he started imitating Hans Conried for Disney. And you know who Hans Conried is. He's been in hundreds and hundreds of things in the 50s to the 80s. He was the voice of the Grinch in How the
Grinch Stole Christmas.
No, that was
No.
That's Boris Karloff, Frankenstein. But in Halloween is Grinch Night, he took over, and subsequent appearances, the Grinch is the Cat in the Hat, all sorts of other neat stuff. He was a very prolific Salvador Dali looking guy. But anyway, he also studied radio acting with Dawes Butler, who did Yogi Bear, Snagglepuss, Quick Draw McGraw. And he went on to study under all the original radio actors in classic-style radio dramas. But he was unsure about pursuing voice work because he was very, very shy and formally diagnosed autistic. But the thing that got him into it is that he loved Disneyland. And they needed an announcer for now arriving on the monorail, and they needed to record some tracks for the Haunted Mansion. He was a protege to Paul Frees, which again, everybody knows him. He was, let's say, Boris Badenoff from Rocky and Bullwinkle. All of the voices ever in the Rankin and Bass specials. And he was a very prolific actor too. So anyway, he got into voice acting, and my guess is that because he formed such tight relationships with these people, and they were also masters of impression, and they were also very echolalic, that given our hyperconnected brains and the way that we interact with people, they were also probably of our people.
Mm.
So anyway, he got his big break doing Disneyland voices and Disney World voices. He became the voice of Ludwig von Drake back in the 70s. And did all these Disney specials, and to this day still voices him. These days, he people might know him better as Cad Bane and Count Dooku in Star Wars stuff. He voiced Brainiac for Justice League, and one of my things is that I knew him best as a Transformers voice, where he was the voice of Spike, the human companion to the Transformers, because autistic people love hanging out with robots. Brawn, Sunstreaker, and Shockwave. And Shockwave is very much based on evil Spock, because he's cold and logical and very much an autistic coded character. And of course, he voiced Shockwave and came back to voice Shockwave several years later, a new incarnation. He also voiced Ratchet, a crotchety old Transformer who, dislikes everything. It's great. And he was very, very, again, growing up, those were my role models. And I was like, there's something about this that very much appeals to me. I had no idea that he was like me. And to this day, he avoids public appearances unless he's in a very, very controlled environment.
Same.
And yeah, because there's so much chaos out there. And of course, there are many, many fans who love him. And it's great to meet fans, but oh my God, it's overwhelming. And this leads into another thing, because he also worked with the famous Frank Welker. And Frank Welker has been in probably almost everything known to man. Started off doing Freddy with Scooby-Doo. He now also does Scooby-Doo. After Lorenzo Music passed away, he took over the voice of Garfield. He does the voice of Abu in Aladdin. And literally everything under the sun. He makes animal noises. If there's a movie that needs animal noises, this man steps in to do animal voices. And everything that he's done. He is the voice of Megatron in Star Wars. The voice of Megatron in Transformers. He is everything, everywhere. And I actually got to meet Frank Welker when I was at BotCon. And he gave me such an autistic vibe. Again, no eye contact, the autistic accent. Really, really was uncomfortable around people. He had to be in a separate room where you go in and met him individually.
Oh,
because
brilliant. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let's stop right there.
Yeah.
Ask for accommodations, people. This is one of the big advantages of knowing that you are autistic, is you can figure out what accommodations will work for you. And I was just in Italy recently, and public transportation is really challenging for me. And what I've learned is if I have a bad public transportation experience, it actually ruins the whole day.
Yeah,
so even though it costs more, and sometimes you can get accommodations without having to pay. In this case, I just chose to pay, but they had private cars. So it was 2 seats and a door. And it was a whole room with a door. And I'm like, that will make it better for me. And then I will be much more likely to enjoy my day when I get there. So when you identify something, I love that he figured this out, put me in a private room, have people stand in line outside. People will come in one at a time, schedule my breaks, make sure somebody comes to evacuate me when I take a break. You are allowed to do those things. So be like Frank.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because his first BotCon appearance, I believe, was in 2015. I was there. It was great. And they made a big thing about how he avoids public appearances at all costs because he gets overwhelmed with crowds. And that's the thing. He needed the accommodations, and they made him the accommodations, and they gave him a ridiculous amount of money, hopefully. And he was able to handle it. And he showed up for the BotCon dinner and talked about stuff. And again, I sat at a table full of autistic women, and we all shot the breeze about all this kind of stuff. And it was a great autistic centered experience. And I think he's never, to my knowledge, been diagnosed. And I tried, for the sake of this podcast, to get some videos to link in the show notes.
Mm.
But it's fascinating because every time that he's on TV, there are multiple cuts while he's speaking because they edit out the autistic accent. And it's very, very interesting to, there was a video on CNN about, I believe the new Scooby-Doo movie at the time. And they had two cameras, one and then another and another and another, and multiple jump cuts back and forth to stop, as you will notice, the pauses when I speak. Because the pauses when we speak are naturally part of our autistic communication. And those were edited out. And it's fascinating. But again, he's still kind of looking around the room and, this kind of stuff because, again, very much like us. But to stay on, the theme of firmly in the camp of autistic people, this person, Richard William Werstein, was diagnosed autistic. Diagnosed AUDHD. So he was born in Detroit, Michigan, diagnosed AUDHD, and he revealed his autism diagnosis on Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal podcast because he said that the reason he got so passionate about voice acting was that it, quote, the only stuff that translated to me and made sense. You might know him better by his stage name, Billy West. And so he grew up in Boston. He got in various bands. He loved selling guitars. It was a very big special interest for him. During the Vietnam War, he was subject to the draft lottery, but he was classified 4F, and because of his flat feet, which, again, common. But he later said that when on Futurama, he loved recording Richard Nixon as revenge against Nixon. Because, he didn't want to go to Vietnam and all this kind of stuff. So that was...
Pause. As somebody with flat feet, is flat feet a typical autistic trait?
It seems to be, because I know lots of people who also do it. But again, it could also be related to the dystonia, the dyspraxia, and all the other interesting physiological stuff that makes us who we are.
Fascinating. All right.
Oh, yes.
Well, I like to know that many of us were able to get out of the draft, get out of Vietnam with our flat feet. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the way that he did. And again, brilliant. Lifelong vengeance against Richard Nixon. So, playing Richard Nixon is a thing. But anyway, he was a guitarist and singer-songwriter with Billy West and the Grief Counselors. Lots of trauma in his background, but that's a whole other thing. But he has toured as a guitarist for Roy Orbison and Brian Wilson.
Oh, sure.
And he did an impression of Mike Love on a Beach Boys inspired tune, Another Cape Cod Summer. He has collaborated with Debbie Harry, Lou Reed, Los Lobos, has played live on several occasions with Brian Wilson. Again, a Beach Boys thing going on here. He also did he did a song on Proposition Infinity under the name Wailing Fungus, but he loves collecting toys. He loves the echolalia. He's a big fan of Larry Fine from the Three Stooges, which is a big reason why Dr. Zoidberg is who he is. But anyway, you might know him as Fry. You might know him as Dr. Zoidberg, Doug, Ren and Stimpy, both. Bugs Bunny.
Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah, because once John Krafalowski was fired because he was lots of problematic things with John Kay. There's a whole other thing. Definitely not autistic. Definitely sort of pervy. But anyway, Billy West took over for both voices. He's both Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd now. He's Popeye, the Honey Nut Cheerios Bee Buzz, and on the subject of M&M, he's the Red M&M.
Oh, okay. Well, aim high.
Yeah, and he attributes that he's able to make such voices and such sounds. He's Nibbler. He's Fry's dog. No. Frank Welker is Fry's dog. Anyway, and Billy West took over as Slimer in Ghostbuster cartoons and Extreme Ghostbusters from Frank Welker. But he didn't know that Frank Welker was lowballed for payment for it because they're very close. Because again, this voice acting community is very, very tight knit.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We love sharing stories of autistic culture, and if you are seeing yourself in any of these stories and you're wondering if maybe you're one of us, or maybe you're already diagnosed or self-diagnosed, and you want to know if Matt can help you live your life better and be more authentically autistic, check out his website at mattlowrylpp.com. That's Matt, M-A-T-T, Lowry, L-O-W-R-Y. And then that LPP, it stands for Licensed Psychological Practitioner. So head on over to mattlowrylpp.com and learn more about working with my buddy Matt.
If you ever see the movie I Know That Voice, there are so many voice actors interviewed and everybody knows each other. They're not willing to cross, the lines in order to, undo each other's success. They're very, very justice oriented to each other and very, very supportive of each other in the community, which is really, really cool. They seem like a bunch of really, really cool people.
Okay, I want to stop here again just to highlight this, because if you are listening and you're autistic and you've been struggling with finding your people, or you're just like tired all the time trying to navigate the neurotypical world, this is such a good lesson, because when you go deep into a special interest, especially one like this, you're going to meet a lot of autistic people. So it doesn't have to be your career. I mean, that can work out nicely. But maybe you're just into like My Little Pony, like see previous episode. And if you get into that special interest, you will make autistic friends. And then at least in that community, you're not dealing with the double empathy problem. You're going to have to deal with it at whatever, the doctor's office in the bank. But having a world, and God, how great to have a career where you're in a largely autistic space, where you are in the neuro majority for a change. And then things like, oh, don't treat your colleagues like douchebags, because in autistic culture, like that's pretty obvious. Like, let's disclose our salaries. Let's make sure somebody's not getting lowballed. Let's not steal a job from someone. This is not obvious in neurotypical culture, where it's climb the ladder over fairness. Or maybe it's like protect your family first. Like they have other values in their culture, and I don't want to judge those values. But in our culture, we're like, make $10 and screw someone over, or we both make $5. Culturally, I'm not saying every single autistic person, but culturally, we know the studies have been done. We've talked about this over and over. Listen to the Dimensions of Autistic Culture podcast that we did episode, and you will see, like, we will pick, both of us get $5 in, the trolley problem. We're going to always pick equity and fairness as a cultural rule. So, yeah. God, how great to work in that, largely in that environment.
And that's another thing about, his Futurama co-star, John DiMaggio, recently was lowballed for the Futurama revival for Hulu, and said, no, I'm not doing Bender unless everybody gets more money. And he was very, very public about it, because he's very outspoken about these sort of things, and doesn't want to put other people on the spot. So yeah, it seems to be such a great community. I was introduced to Maurice LaMarche, the voice of the Brain, Egon on Real Ghostbusters, many, many other voices, through my friend, who is an autistic person named Mark Isham, who did a lot of radio stuff, did a lot of voiceovers, very good actor. He passed away a few years ago, but Maurice LaMarche friended me on Facebook through Mark Isham. And I got to, because of Maurice LaMarche, I got to see Rob Paulson live in concert, where he was singing Yakko Sings the Entire World, United States, Panama, Mexico, Canada, Yeah.
I know that.
And again, he is a prolific guy, does not seem to be... does not believe himself to be autistic, but again, he recognizes that his friend Corey Burton is autistic.
Yeah.
And but that's the thing. There are a lot of autistic people who say, "Oh yes, I'm like that. I'm like that. I'm like that. No, I can't possibly be autistic, but I am like that and like that and like that and like that and like that. But no, not me. No.
Right.
No. But yeah,
we'll just
such is
call
the
them
way.
influenced by autistic culture.
Yeah, autism adjacent. We welcome you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, and that's the thing, because there are so many. Yeah, got to get back on topic. Going off on tangents, on tangents, on tangents.
Mazing. This
But
is called
yes,
mazing, everyone. We just wanted to demonstrate it to you.
exactly. And so if you watch anime, there is one autistic character. Well, there is one character that's always been sort of coded as autistic, but again, could be just due to the original writing in Japanese being very focused on studies and stuff. But it turns out that Kyle Hebert, who is a prolific anime voiceover artist, who is very much into video games, does the voice of Gohan on Dragon Ball in American stuff. Very, very studious, has unbelievable power, raised by an asexual alien. He himself is somewhat alien because he's a Saiyan. But anyway, loves to study and puts his acquisition of knowledge above all else. Very autistic coded, played by an autistic guy. And if you ever heard the phrase Hadouken, he also does the voice of Ryu in Street Fighter.
Oh, I know that sound. I love Street Fighter.
Yeah, he's autistic. And again, Ryu travels the world and tries to get better and tries to get better and tries to get better because he's monotropically focused on being the best fighter he can possibly be. So, yeah, the voice actor of Ryu, diagnosed autistic. So this leads to a few other people like Kayla Cromer from Everything's Gonna Be Okay. Really, really wants to be Squirrel Girl for the MCU. Diagnosed autistic. Helped her, Everything's Gonna Be Okay co-stars figure out that they're autistic. Very prolific in this. Dan Harmon, who has a notable podcast, Community, Rick and Morty, is a frequent, because we're going to squeeze this in here under the voice acting, because he does a lot of voice acting. He's autistic, has talked about it on several occasions, apparently recently gotten into therapy to discuss how, officially autistic. So that's pretty cool. But you know who else is autistic and does occasional voice acting? Wentworth Miller. And he has been officially diagnosed as autistic from Prison Break. He was on The Flash as Captain Cold. And famous Hollywood actor and sometimes voice actor, Vincent D'Onofrio.
Oh.
Yeah. Notable for Thor in the Adventures in Babysitting. Also Edgar the Bug in Men in Black. Kingpin on Daredevil. But he's been in like lots and lots of stuff. Jorge Gutierrez is an autistic Hispanic man who has a visually distinct cartooning style and a strong influence in traditional Mexican culture. He made the Nickelodeon cartoon El Tigre, The Adventures of Manny Riviera, the movie The Book of Life, and he's working on the Netflix miniseries Maya and the Three. He was diagnosed autistic shortly after his son was. Because,
Shocker.
again,
we should
this
talk
is the
about
way.
the pipeline. Talk about the pipeline, Matt.
Oh, yes. So you go from the, I think that my child might be autistic, to it turns out that no one in this house is neurotypical.
Yeah, I love that.
This is the neat thing about doing autism evaluations with people, because again, I see a lot of initially people bring their kids to me to say, yeah, our kid is not doing well in school socially, or is a little strange, or this or that, or everything else. And again, we say, this is a trait. Really? This is a trait. Really? This is a trait. But I do all those things. And it turns out that, again, because autism is 94%, the heritability rate of autism is 94%, at least one parent, usually both, because autistic people attract autistic people, are autistic themselves. And you can trace it all the way up the family tree. And this is why a whole bunch of people end up finding themselves. And hold on one second. I want to double check this, because this is an arcane bit of knowledge that I want to double check before I say it out loud.
That's what we do. But yeah, if you are in a relationship where you find communication is easy and you're autistic, if you can do a little evaluation with your partner. I know that's what happened with us. I was like, take this quiz. I'm just curious. I have an idea, because communicating with you is so easy. And I've been in so many relationships where communicating was hard. So I started reading like the double empathy research, and I'm like, this would be a weird coincidence if I found the one neurotypical guy who's amazing at communicating with autistic people.
Yeah.
And then sure enough, the guy I picked is also autistic.
This is the way. And that's the thing. Autistic people breed autistic kids. And I was correct, because it turns out that an autism evaluation revealed that D.L. Hughley's son is autistic. So again, you might need to trace it back, because again, it doesn't come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But Maxwell Adams is the creator of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy and Evil Con Carne.
I don't know either of those.
Oh, it's a Cartoon Network series.
Okay.
He talked about, I have Asperger's, and every single social interaction I have is anxiety inducing. Mm-hmm. And therefore he explicitly says that the characters in his shows are autistic. So Billy, Mandy, and Grim, the Grim Reaper, are canonically autistic. So may not Richard Horvath is the voice of Billy, also does Invader Zim. I really, really want him to be autistic, but I can't find anything that there is, because again, he gives off very Billy West vibes. But if anyone knows anything else, please add to the comments, because So, let's see here. Slightly off, but I'm gonna, since this is our podcast and I can say anything I want. David F. Sandberg, the director of Shazam and Shazam 2, is autistic, diagnosed. Entrapta on the new She-Ra and the Princess of Power is canonically autistic and influenced by autistic staffers on the show. Played by Christine Woods, doesn't appear to be autistic herself, could be wrong, but she says that in addition to her bubbly, energetic personality, above-average strength, and larger-than-life purple pigtails, the Etherian is a scientist and mechanical engineer of genius ability, which often comes in handy on adventures with the Princess Alliance, even when they cannot seem to follow her highly sophisticated technical jargon, because pedantic speech is the way of our people.
Yes, we love a little pedantic speech. We might even do some today.
Exactly. And before we get into the big one, of course, I want to talk about watching House of the Dragon. There was one character that struck me as very autistic coded, King Viserys, because he's got an enormous model of, the King's Landing. He's got his dragon toys. He's got his collection, and he falls in love because, oh God, what's her face? I can't remember. Anyway, she betrays him. Anyway, she fixes his dragon model for him, but Patty Considine is officially autistic.
Wait, I want to stop on that. Hold on, because somebody fixes your dragon model.
Yes.
Your dragon model. So remember, for us, like, special interests are like people, and we actually can see what part of the brain lights up. In neurotypical people would be when you see your mother. That part of your brain would light up. In autistic people, when we see our dragon, that part of the brain lights up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and Matt will talk about friends and family and fictional characters, and they're equal. Like, it's not, in our culture, your dragon is just as important as somebody's mother. So somebody comes in and they fix your dragon, aka they fix your mother. Like, this is something so important to you. Of course, you're going to interpret that as, they love me and they'll be loyal forever.
Yeah.
And we will be together forevermore. Because why would you fix my dragon if you didn't love me and want to be with me forever? This can get us into a little bit of trouble. Again, we get stuck on this thinking of, like, logically to me, you would not have come in and saved my dragon if you didn't love me.
Yeah.
And so, as much as in communication with us, neurotypical people will miss some clues, we can miss clues in how we interpret people's behavior based on our values and cultural norms within autistic culture. So sometimes it takes us down some sad heartbreak roads.
It happens to the best of us. Myself. So it is we mistake that for the autistic mating dance, and when it's genuine, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing, and when it's not, it's an intense betrayal.
Right.
And that brings it. I've often questioned if George R.R. Martin is one of us, because again, he was writing letters to the Fantastic Four fan pages back in the '60s, and is a very, very prolific reader. Oh, George R.R. Martin attended the very first Comic-Con, and the very first San Diego Comic-Con. Still has his ticket, and I think he was like number 50. So yeah, this is the way. So it's very, very on topic for us. But I want to get to this is a person that I've been meaning to cover for some time, because he's a prolific animator. He worked on the Black Cauldron. He worked on the Fox and the Hound. He worked on his own. He was frequently hired and fired by Disney for both being profitable and too weird. He did Vincent, Hansel and Gretel, Frankenweenie, and Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
Oh, yes. So because Tim Burton is a prolific autistic man. He fun fact, he's in the Muppet movie, because he at the time was a member of the Puppeteers Union, and they needed everybody on deck. So in the last scene of the Muppet movie, where all the Muppets are standing around under the rainbow, he is in the pit along with John Landis. John Landis played Grover, but Tim Burton is in there playing one of the
random
side characters.
Right,
yeah,
random Muppet.
But he is in the Muppet movie, and among all these other characters, among all these other talents, directing, animating, puppeteering, he loves his creative stuff. And the thing about Nightmare Before Christmas, created by Tim Burton, but it has a lot of influences. Like the Tim Burton wrote a short story, The Nightmare Before Christmas, that the movie is largely based on. But when they started filming, they didn't have a script yet. So his close friend and eternal cinematic life partner, Danny Elfman, from Oingo Boingo and prolific scorer of movies, Danny Elfman was in this transition period where he wanted to branch out and do something different. So all of the songs that he wrote about Jack Skellington Sally was about his own life, transitioning from Oingo Boingo into doing film, because he wanted to try something new, even though it was scary and weird to him, but it was intriguing. So that's where all the songs came from, and they wrote the movie script around this. And it was directed by Henry Selick. And Henry Selick has made a career out of stop motion animation with Coraline, James and the Giant Peach. He has dedicated his life and he's recently collaborated with Jordan Peele on Wendell and Wild, stop motion animation, his first movie in 13 years. And if you ever watch footage of him, he stims while he talks. He avoids eye contact. He has the autistic accent. And again, the monotropism, in order to focus entirely on this sort of stuff. And it's fantastic. But again, Tim Burton is fascinated by German Impressionist cinema. That is a major special interest. All of his friends seem to be autistic. Johnny Depp is autistic. His partner, Helena Bonham Carter, is the one who first pointed out that he's autistic. And she's very eccentric herself. Everybody that he chooses to work with, he chooses to work with the same group of people over and over and over again. And when companies say, oh, yes, you are novel and therefore productive and therefore you make us lots of money, we want to work with you, until he's too novel and they say, oh, that's very weird.
Right.
And
or you have an autistic meltdown, or you because we talked about Steve Jobs on the Apple episode, his autistic meltdown that got him fired.
Exactly.
So a lot of, without the right accommodations and without being aware of your diagnosis, you can make some career limiting decisions. I know I have. So
we don't work well in a structured hierarchy where we have to report creatively and editorially to people above us. We tend to do best when left to our own devices and can just do the things that we are good at.
Yeah, that my positive reviews were like, Angela is a good solo player. And then my bad reviews were, Angela does not play well in the sandbox.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast. We'll be right back.
When autistic people find a special interest, they go deep and have a lot of knowledge, even if they don't have that formal education background to go with it. If you want to capture your spin in a book, check out Angela's work at differencepress.com, differencepress.com, and find out more about becoming an author and establishing your credibility with a book. I was once told on an employee evaluation that my work is beyond reproach, that I am incredibly thorough in my reports and in my notes, but I don't stop and talk to coworkers. And that
work on that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. My plan was to stop in and chit chat with coworkers, and I'm like, so you just want me to go into people's office and start talking? Why?
And what interrupt them.
Yeah,
so
like
they lose their train of thought and an hour of time for a 5-minute conversation about the weather. That's the goal.
Shouldn't they be working? So I took that as works great. Is a model employee, needs to learn people's names. So, but this is a quote from Tim Burton about working in the system.
Whew. I'm ready for it. Here we go. Hold on. I was ready. I was hired and fired like several times throughout my career at Disney. The thing about Dumbo is that's why I think my days with Disney are done. I realized that I was Dumbo, that I was working in this horrible big circus and I needed to escape. That movie is quite autobiographical at a certain level.
Yeah. And that's the thing about us.
I always loved Dumbo. Now I want to go back and watch it.
Yeah,
I just remember he had big ears. I don't remember it.
Yeah, big ears, made fun of by the other elephants, but at the same time, the thing that made him different made him extraordinary.
So everybody wanted to come see Dumbo, but then everybody hated Dumbo, but then everyone went, oh yes, that is my career.
Yeah. And that's the thing about everybody listening, because presumably you relate to us and you relate to the topics that we're talking about because you feel different, because you know that you are different from the people around you. But that difference is what will help you excel. Like I say, no one ever changed the world by being like everyone else. And Dumbo is not at all like the other elephants. Tim Burton is not like other directors. The thing that makes us unique is what makes us, valuable. The world needs these different points of view. The world needs esoteric personalities. The world needs a little bit of weirdness in order to make the world a better place, because otherwise the world is extraordinarily bland. And I guarantee you that if you've spent your entire... So we are taught all the way through school that we need to sit down and be quiet and fit in. We are taught our entire lives that we need to fit in, but we spend the rest of our lives trying to stand out. And if you're, if you're already standing out, then that's outstanding, because you need to be the real you. You need to be as unique as you possibly can, because that's where you will find your success. We are just not meant to work within a system that is not meant for our brains, because we are more sensitive. We are more perceptive. Hence, all of these voice actors making all of these wonderful animal noises, making all of these wonderful impressions, doing impressions of accents. Because that's the thing about echolalia. Because of our hyperconnected mirror neurons. So mirror neurons are these cells in the brain that facilitate social interaction, right? Because our brains are hyperconnected, and because we have hyperconnected mirror neurons, we are more likely to accidentally copy other people. We are more likely to accidentally copy fun things that they say. We accidentally copy accents, and people think that we're making fun of them. We accidentally copy their movements, which is, again, what leads us to being great actors and lead us to being great voice actors and being great, replicators of all things, because we are very, very into the details. This goes back into the bottom-up processing versus the top-down processing, because we see the details that they don't. They see the big picture and try to find the details. We see the details and try to find the big picture. And we love these details, and that's why I love working with autistic people, because they're detail oriented. I love I will hire autistic people to do things that I need, like my furnace needed to be fixed, my HVAC unit, and I said, "Hey, anyone know any autistic people?" And someone said, "Yeah, my cousin." And four autistic people, autistic presenting, because again, we didn't have a conversation
Yeah,
about the tism, but came out, took a look at it. It was that cartoon effect of a cloud of smoke with saws and hammers. And then a half hour later, a pristine new inside unit and outside unit, leveled off at 90 degrees. Everything shiny and at a straight edge. Beautiful work. Could not ask for better. Because that's the thing about us. When, again, people like to micromanage us, and people like to make us do things in their way, just like the Disney machine with Tim Burton. But given us left up to our own devices, because we are so detail oriented, the end product will be something magnificent. And this is why I really, really love diving into this kind of stuff, because I am echolalic myself. I am a big fan of this. I love researching these things. This brings me into another thing, because so when I see kids, fun fact, when you were talking about the light up areas of the brain, did you know that they've done brain scans and a specific area lights up for Pokemon names?
No, oh my god,
that is unrelated to family or friends' names.
There's a Pokemon area of the brain for autistic people?
Yes, you need to look this up, because it's so neat. They've done studies. And again, I think that that's very related to our autistic brains, because granted, there are several neurotypical people who play Pokemon, but the people who love the Pokemon and know 1,000 names, I can get you to around maybe 180, 200. But again, I have sadly dropped off over the years. My Pokemon day was in the 90s with red and blue. I can school you on the original 151. But the kids today grew up with Generation 5 and thousands of Pokemons, and they know way more than I do. So if you are one of these people, this is a challenge. Write as many as you can in the comments without looking them up, because I want to see how many Pokemon you can name. Gotta catch them all. The Pokemon.
Gotta catch them all.
Exactly. But this is the thing about. So anyway, akin to Pokemon, one of my favorite video games of all time is Skylanders.
Oh, I love Skylanders, with the things you put in little toys and you put them on the little thing, and then they zoom into your TV screen.
Skylanders is autistic crack, because so there's, I don't know, 1.5 million toys that you can collect, each one individually sculpted,
each one individually
playable.
Like $20.
Yeah, of course, yeah, because it made a ridiculous amount of money. And some games were better than others. I didn't really get into the Skylanders Racers. Trap Team was adequate. I love Giants, but the game... Oh, no. I love Trap Team. That's the one I'm going to get to. I didn't love the Racers. I didn't... Swap Force was adequate.
Oh,
but
yeah,
Trap
that's
Team,
the one I played the most, Swap Force.
Yeah. I liked the ability to swap them around, but oh my god, Trap Team was the thing, because not only could you collect all the Skylanders, not only could you play all the Skylanders, but now you could battle the bosses and trap them in crystals, which you could also collect. And it was Ghostbusters plus crystals plus crazy monsters. And it was just, it tickled every area of my brain of gotta collect them all. And the best part about this is all of the voice actors we have mentioned today are in this game.
Really?
Yes, such an autistic presence. Except for Frank Welker. I don't believe Frank Welker's in. But so many other people in this game. Even the Crypt Keeper plays a role in the game. They sought out every voice actor they could find to cover many voice to cover many Skylanders. And not when I got into this game, I love collecting the toys. I loved arranging the toys. I love lining up the toys. I love playing with the toys, but I really, really, really love looking up IMDb to see who played the Skylanders. And God, that was such a satisfying thing to put, names to the voices because, again, with my hypersensitive hearing, I am very, very good at picking out voice actors and saying, I recognize that voice from this and this and this. And when I find a voice actor that's like, oh my God, I had no idea they were so versatile, that's an added area of, delight, because then I'm like, oh, hey, you are incredibly talented. I did not recognize you at all. So, yeah, Skylanders is just the jam. I am, and if you're into Skylanders, you can probably pick up, they're probably like on eBay for $2 now. They have shiny Skylanders. I found shiny Skylanders in the wild. They were far too expensive for me to pick up online, but I found a few in the wild, and they are my treasure. They are on my wall downstairs with all of my autistic toys. But yeah, so I really, really hope we will include a lot of show notes with this. So if you're, I will go ahead and add these to the show notes now before I forget. Because if you are interested in these sort of things, if you're interested in learning more, please do, because it's a very, very, very fun deep dive. It's a very, very fun bit of data acquisition. It's fun to explore our culture and the people within it. And I could not be happier about, voice acting, about animation, about all of this stuff, because it truly is representative of who we are and why we find things delightful.
Yeah. And just such a great example of how broadly culture has been affected for everybody. Like these are shows that are watched around the world in, many age brackets. I think we've covered all the generations that are living right now. And that is, I think, one of the big payoffs of having a special interest and having a monotropic focus and being able to really master an art. And there are a lot of autistic people in this space who have mastered the art of voiceovers and animation. So thanks for sharing it with us.
My pleasure. But to wrap up, hey, Angela, what was your favorite part about being autistic this week?
I had a very fun, actually life-changing, more valuable than therapy revelation last night.
Damn.
I'm going to share it with you. And I think this is why it's so important to either get diagnosed or self-diagnosed, but to know you're autistic, because some dots will connect in your life that they can be traumatizing. You could be like, oh, that was terrible, but they can also be very healing. So this is a very healing story. And it includes heels. So there's a pun. My husband was walking to the couch, and the sound and vibration of his footsteps made me imagine murdering him with a machete.
Misophonia will do that, yes.
I was like, why does he have feet? Why does he walk? Why does he walk near me? I am going to have to murder this human. It will be very sad. My whole body was just filled with murderous rage. He literally just walked. Did nothing to offend me. Probably walked to bring me something, like a cup of tea. And as this rage filled my body, I had this flashback of my dad. So my dad was never physically abusive, but he was mentally torturous. Yeah. And he would often comment on my weight. And and I was always fat as a kid and an adult. And one of the ways he would comment on my weight was that I walk heavy. You walk so heavy. And there was we had a couch, and then near the couch was this bar, and in the bar were stacked wine glasses in those cute little, you put the stem of the wine glass, and I would walk by the bar and the wine glasses would rattle, and my dad would lose his mind, lose his absolute fucking mind on me. And then my mom would like try and protect me. Eventually I would like walk out one door and walk in the other door of the house to avoid walking by the bar when my dad was there, because it was just, and it felt like it was an attack on being fat. So then it had all this like fat shame, because everybody else could walk by the bar and he didn't lose his mind, but I would walk by the bar and he would lose his mind. When I had this revelation last night, which I will tell you about, I texted my sister and I said, do you remember how Mickey would go nuts when I would walk by a bar? She's like, how could I forget? Like this was a place in our home I was not allowed to walk, or the walls would come off the house. Sort of like I was about to kill my husband.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, he had no idea how to ask nicely for accommodations. It really was driving him nuts. He probably didn't say anything 3,000 times a day about all the sounds that were driving him nuts. And so I realized, if I didn't know, I mean, obviously my husband made that noise and I was like, oh, I need an accommodation. I need to move the room. I need to leave the room. I need to put in my noise canceling headphones. Like, this is obviously not a big deal. I can manage this. Yeah. Like, I have the skills. I can handle this. But I could easily have blown up my marriage with things like that, which my father managed to blow up his. So I was talking to my sister this, and I felt like incredible like love and forgiveness for my dad. Like, I got it. He wasn't talking about me being fat at all. He was talking about his sensory sensitivity. Yeah.
And if he just had like a little rubber covering on it, they wouldn't have rattled, because there would have. That's the thing about knowing yourself.
Oh my God, we could move the fucking wine glasses.
Yeah.
That would have been a solution. So my assumption was that my dad did not listen to this podcast, but my sister she talked to him and he said, I don't know, I listen to that. Maybe I'm autistic too, but I'm too old to care. So my dad's like 81, but I was like, I love you, Dad. It's so sweet. So I think there's so many people. I get letters all the time from listeners who are recognizing themselves or their kids or their parents. And we talk about the joy and the beauty of autistic culture, because when you see that, there's so much goodness, and so many accommodations are really not that hard to have more of the goodness and less of the meltdowns, which traumatized my little 12-year-old soul. So I also have a lot of love for my 12-year-old who didn't know she was autistic and didn't know how to deal with her father, but everyone was doing their best, man. And now we can do better.
That's all you can do, because knowledge is power.
Yeah. So that was my favorite thing about being autistic and knowing I'm autistic, was just like total forgiveness, freedom. So that's my wish for everybody. Moments of recognition that give you a sense of self-love and freedom and forgiveness. That's
you need that.
Yeah. So awesome. This was all about sounds. We just spent the whole time, my story, these stories, all about sound. We want to hear your autistic sound experience. Sound is a huge part of autistic culture. Who is your favorite voiceover actor? What is your favorite animation? And what are some sound memories you can share with us? Drop them in the comments. Please do rate and review the podcast, and also share this with your friends. Share, because your friends are probably autistic too, by the way. Yeah, and share this with people who you think would like to celebrate autistic culture with us. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember,
no one ever changed the world by being like everyone else.
You can find out more about writing your book with me at differencepress.com. That's difference, DIFFERENCE, press, PRESS.com.
Or getting a psychological evaluation or consult with me at www.mattlowrylpp.com. That's MATT, Matt Lowry, LOWRY, LPP, as in licensed psychological practitioner.com.